This is Maceo Cabrera Esteves from Booklandia. We were established in 2016 and we specialize in Spanish and bilingual books for kids and teens. We are based out of Oakland, California, and we're an online and traveling bookstore. We work with families, classrooms, and libraries in creating inclusive and representative personal libraries. So we have an announcement that we have a new author series, and this is our first one, and I'm happy to announce that our first guest is Xelena González, and she is from San Antonio, Texas, and she is the writer of All Around Us, which was published last year, right, from Cinco Punto Press, 2017.
October 2017.
Yes, 2017. And it just recently came out in Spanish, Por Todo Nuestro Alrededor. And so please, well, you can't give a warm welcome, but when you're watching this, just give a little clap for Xelena González. Thank you, Xelena.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk with you and to know about your organization and the need that you meet in our global community.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's start off a little bit with you. So you are from San Antonio, Texas. Were you born and raised there?
Yes, I was born and raised here on the west side of San Antonio. That is the neighborhood that is featured in our book. Both Adriana Garcia, the illustrator, and I are from this neighborhood. And I like saying that because growing up, our neighborhood was often relegated to an unsavory status, I guess, where it's an impoverished neighborhood, it's a very Mexican neighborhood, and people sort of had this like, oh, you're from the West Side kind of attitude, but that people wanted to leave. But both of our parents were community activists, and they worked to lift up the community, to improve the community, to get taxpayer dollars where they belonged and not just in the nice neighborhoods. And so I feel like Adriana and I are continuing the work that our parents have done and the values that they instilled in us by creating this book and featuring our very neighborhood. Yeah.
So is that how you and Adriana met, is through your parents' community activism?
I think technically we did. So we don't remember, but we imagine that we must have played as children. There's like photos and evidence because they would sort of drag us to the same like city council meetings, community organization meetings. But we connected later through another local nonprofit arts organization where we worked on her muralism with the children. And I did creative writing with children in various schools, and we just worked really well together. And so that's been so we connected more as adults on a friend level and on a level of professional engagement. So that was in our early 20s. So it's been a while. I'm 40 now.
Oh, that's amazing. And so tell me, why did you become a writer and why this book?
So I think that, I was thinking a lot about that this morning because I checked into Instagram. I'd kind of been, it overwhelms me sometimes. So I hadn't been on it in a while, and I saw some recent, I want to say UW-Madison maybe put out a statistic about, our own voices and representation in children's books. So this has been an issue that's come up over and over again. And it's relevant and it's real and it's dire, just depending on how you look at it. But this has come up time and time again in my undergraduate studies. I studied journalism at Northwestern. So I've always been a writer. I didn't think I could make a living. It's like, well, you want to be a writer, but you do this, right? So I went into journalism. But this idea of how our people are represented has always come up, right? And who's writing the story, from whose perspective. Like, I've always known that that's like, it's crucial. It's everything. So then, so I go into journalism, go into a creative writing arts organization, which is where I met Adriana, and had always, been interested in various forms of writing. Luego, I went into library school, and this issue came up again and again, specifically in literature for youth. So I honestly, Maceo, I had trouble with it because these debates come up and we read countless essays about it. And this idea of our own voices, it's important. It is.
Mm-hmm.
However, I grew up this neighborhood, this West Side neighborhood, because of the way that San Antonio was integrated back in my parents' day.
Yeah.
It's highly populated by Mexican and Black
Mm-hmm.
neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is how I grew up. These are
Mm-hmm.
the neighbors I grew up with. These were my roommates. I've lived in China for over 3 years,
Wow.
off and on.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have this thought, like in these debates, because I did my program online. Like, what am I trying to say? I would never want someone to tell me as a writer that I could not write a Chinese character or a Black character,
Yeah.
or like my family, my sister married into an Arab family. We've frequented that part of the world. They live near us, or an Arab character. And so I thought, like, so I would say this, like, at the same time, of course it bothered me as a mother to see, because you can kind of feel it. A lot of times you could feel it. And I know you know this because you study a lot of books. Like you read it and it's like, oh my God, I'm going to go to this bio and I'm going to see that somebody spent a summer in Mexico and thought they could write. So I understand there's a lot to be said for authenticity and our own voices. So I thought, like, okay, where does that leave me as a writer? Like, obviously there's a shortage. Obviously so as a writer, as a creative person, I better get to writing. You know what I mean? Like, and tell these stories. So I felt like that fire started a long time ago, and I started writing stories, but I wanted to choose my own illustrator. And they told me right away that that's not how I could do it. So
how did you defy that?
Okay. So NALAC, which it's called the National Association of Latino Arts and Culture. And hopefully, if you're Latina or Latino and you know about this, you know the wonderful work they do around the world, really. If you don't know about it, please look it up, because they have grant opportunities and provide a lot of resources. So we applied for a grant for Adriana to illustrate my book. Originally, we applied for her to illustrate 3 books. It was a really stupid grant the first time around. Luckily, we missed the deadline. We applied again the next year and we said maybe just 1 book. So she got paid to do this, and I helped her carry this out through a story walk, which is a really cool concept that I learned about in library school. We initially presented the story to our community on campaign posters.
That's amazing.
So it was super cool. So on one side was Spanish and on one side was English, because we wanted our community to and know about this. So it was public art. It was out for a month on the lawn of a local public library. The library has supported us from the get. I love them. I served there in the public library for 5 years. And anyway, so at the end of it all, we thought about self-publishing. We thought about sending it, we already knew we couldn't just send it to any publisher. Actually, Cinco Puntos was our first try.
Wow.
Because I was going back to China. We were doing all of this while I was living in China and then kind of home for the summer. So this has been a labor of love for so long. So I said, there's this one house that I know of in Texas, and they have this strange process where you pitch by phone and then it's not a cold call, right? And so I told her, hey, we have this project. My friend did it. We have 100 and something signatures of people who say they would buy the book if we had the book. So she said, well, what if I don't like her art? Or what if I don't like your writing? So I had to pretend to be real brave and say, like, well, we know that's a possibility, but you're going to like both. And then I went, and then I go back to China, and the first day of school, I get this email where they said, oh my God, of course, we want to be a part of this. And everything that's come after, like the accolades, like it's just all so amazing. But I really feel, Maceo, that like our community blessed up this project. Like, and so now Adriana gets to illustrate more books. I get to write more stories. We're going to do some together. We're going to do some with other artists, and it's been amazing. It's really cool.
That is really, really cool. Yeah, some of the accolades is that you have an ALSC Notables Children's Book, a 2018 Pura Verbre Illustrator Honor Book, 2018 American Indian Youth Literature Award Picture Book Honor, Tomas Rivera Award Best Picture Book, and Texas Institute of Letters Best Picture Book. That's amazing. And it's so beautiful. Can you show our audience your books? So we have one, so it's Xelena González's book, illustrated by Adriana Garcia, and in English is All Around Us. Look at that beautiful cover. It's just, it's really breathtaking.
So this is our blingy book. My daughter has one that has all of the award seals, and it's kind of ridiculous.
Oh no, it's not. It's not.
But yeah, the seals have been amazing, and all of the award ceremonies have been just amazing and special in their own way. This is Por Todo Nuestro Alrededor, and this one we just got, and so we're super excited about it.
Yeah.
So a funny story about this one, I don't know if you can tell the difference when they're side by side, but these there's a matte finish on the original, and they tended to have the same for the Spanish, but they printed it glossy.
So
that's what I said. So she said, it was a mistake. We're not sure why, but we just wanted to let you all know. But we have this saying, and I don't know if it's everywhere, but they say it a lot on the West Side, dale shine. And so, so I said, oh no, it's shiny's good. We'll take it.
It needs to be a button or a sticker.
Right? Yeah. Well, it'll have its own dale sticker.
That is so awesome. So let's see. Let me get two more. So you've been able to share this book in classrooms. So can you share a couple of experiences that you've had?
Yeah, so I was a children's librarian before in the public sector, and then as well at a private school. That's what I was doing in China, international school. So I was able to. So I already have all kinds of ideas of like how to share books. I love doing that. That's my passion. So so when we hit the road, like I had songs, we had activities, like we just had like the whole bag of tricks. Never Adriana's amazing bag of tricks, which is like live illustrating. So she's done some live art demos.
That's nice.
We do some song, we do some dance, we do creative writing activities depending on what the venue or event requires, or what a school asks for. The one that we've done probably the most often and that people have responded to the most is Tai Chi. Retelling of the story. So part of that came from me being in China at the time it was published, because I wasn't here. That was the other thing, Maseo.
Wow.
I was finishing my contract out there in October when it was published. So I do feel like 2018 was the year, because that's when we sort of like traveled a lot and started picking up these awards. But at the tail end of the year, I was still there. So my kiddos in the library, like I would test these things out. Now, Tai Chi is or Qigong, as it's sometimes called, is energy. And it's this idea of moving the energy in your body and around you, and really just connecting to that space within, which, I mean, you can see through Adriana's art, that's a part of it. And that's, without giving too much of a spoiler, that's the concept, that's the idea that they're exploring these circles in their environment, but also within themselves, and seeing themselves as part of the greater circle.
Yeah.
And, I had a very strong intention in mind in creating this story, and also in sharing it in various cities, and that is especially in the schools, because in those environments our children are taught to do math and a certain version of history, and how to think and how to behave, and they're not taught to love themselves, and they're not reminded of this. And so I sort of felt like a little bit of this like subversive mission of like, we're going to go into the schools and show our children that by the words that they create in their own poems. So they write these poems where they they see the beauty in themselves by connecting to a metaphor in nature, and by quieting their minds and moving through the action that takes place. So they're recalling the story, but we're doing it through some dynamic gestures. So one example, they're gardening, right? And we inhale and exhale, right? And so it's just a real simple movement that's part of the Badwanji, and they're pulling vegetables and planting flowers. And so it's been real cool. And what I like about that is that every age can do it, every body can do it, and everybody leaves feeling like it's like 5 minutes, and they're like, I feel great, you know, whether so that's been really cool.
That is great. Wow, that's very it's a unique way of presenting a book.
Yeah.
So
yeah, right.
I could see why it's been asked a lot.
Yeah.
So
Early on, I felt like there's certain, like the profession of librarianship, you can be really simple and at times lazy about it, right? So there's a lot of this, like, here's a story, here's the craft, here's a story. Crafts are cool, but I felt early on that incorporating music and movement and world cultures and understanding your part as a global citizen, oh man, that resonates with the kids. They fly, they remember, they inhabit story. And so I wanted to do that for our story.
That's amazing. Oh, that's really beautiful. So what are you working on now?
So I'm not sure how much I can or should say, but I'll say this. Well, I think I can. So Adriana and I have another book coming out. I don't know when, but she's currently working. The thing is, you know, her work is in high demand as well.
That's awesome.
So she keeps getting asked to do these murals. And so our city is just beautified all the time by her work. So she's working on a mural now, but she has started some images for our next book. The title is unclear, but I will say that some of this came from the kiddos that we met with who said, because in here it's the little girl and her grandpa.
Yeah.
What about grandma? There was a lot of them who have a special with grandma. So grandma is in this story.
Nice.
There's also connection to nature, but specifically rocks. And the question of whether they're alive and what they're the different things they can do. There's a connection to the elements and definitely to Native American culture, which I believe is I know people have differing opinions on this, but it is a major component in the Latino culture. I don't see them as mutually exclusive. I've learned in the awards cycle that some people do, but that's another thing. So we're working on that, and I'm working on I received my own NALAC grant this time to create children's story incorporating all of the images from the Mexican card game La Loteria.
Cool.
Yeah, and I posted recently. So so these are some of the images in case people are not familiar. El venado, So I wanted to research the origin of some of these cards. It's a little bit mysterious how their origins, well, we know essentially they came from Spain, right? So it's a really nice mixture of our mestiza culture, right? The Spanish, and then it took off and it stuck and was celebrated and continues to be in the Mexican and Mexican American culture. So I wanted to do a picture book that incorporates all of these images. I've completed a first draft of that. I've also written some remedios, what I'm calling remedios, sort of healing cards or oracle cards attached to these. So I've done a draft of that as well.
Oh, that's so exciting. And is it also going to be cinco puntos, or do you have a publisher?
So that's the part that I'm not sure I can say.
Okay, that's fine.
But it would not, if this goes through, it would be, I would be collaborating with an illustrator in Spain, who one of the bigger houses in New York was trying to bring in, and she likes the concept. So let's hope that that it all happens. So
this is so exciting. You know, one of the reasons why I started this author series is because I feel like it's really important for us as readers to get to know the authors and illustrators and their process, because, you know, we see a book, we fall in love with it, but we want to get to know more about you, you know, and also for inspiration. You know, that was one thing about, you talked about earlier about the statistics, and it's from the Cooperative Children's Book Center and their School of Education. They're based out of Madison, Wisconsin. And so yesterday, yeah, we read this, you know, graphic about, you know, 1%, you know, indigenous characters were in books in 2018. 1%. Latinx was 5%. You know, but African or African American was 10%. I can't really remember what the Asian one was. It was pretty. It was like in between. Wait, let me check. It was in between Latinx. Oh, it was 7%. Yeah, and then animals was 27%, and white characters was 50%, you know. And so yesterday I posted about it, and you know, one person asked, well, do you think that there's a lack of writers and illustrators, or do you think they're not getting published? I'm like, no, there's plenty. We're just not getting published, you know. And I don't think there's enough resources for communities of color to be in this world, you know, in the publishing world. You know, NALAC is amazing. They're based out of Albuquerque, right?
San Antonio.
San Antonio. Yes. San Antonio. What other, it was another one that I think was based out of Albuquerque. But yeah, no, it's great that you have that local. And we have to share that more with people, because I got a message yesterday from someone. I want to write a children's book. What should I do? You know, like, I'm like, okay, you know, I'm with my kid right now, you know, and they're at the planetarium, and I'm just sitting down. So I'm going to write to you. I'm going to write back, you know, just my tips. One of my tips is read, you know, go to the library, read as many children's books as there are, and, you know, see what's missing. You know, what story, you know, what story is inside of you that you want to write that is no, you know, it doesn't exist anymore, you know, at all, or only a couple of stories. So what is it that you want to share to emerging or aspiring writers?
Well, I couldn't agree more with what you said, and I'm glad that you mentioned the name of the organization, because I couldn't remember. I just knew it was at UW, and I've seen some of these statistics before. I loved how they did the infographic with the mirrors, because like, wow, that's startling there, right? And it's absolutely true. I wrote a blog a while back about for book people in Austin. They have an author blog. Sorry, this is a quick tangent, but they I wrote about my daughter, this whole question of diversity and representation, and that infographic that really reminded me of it. Because again, since journalism school, like windows and mirrors, and you hear these like these concepts, and there's all these studies and statistics, right, and essays and pontification, right? But here's what happened. My daughter started talking when she was 1. She was very little, and I always took her to the library. And so they had these little book bins for the board books, and she would go through them, and she would check out the same books every time. The books, and I remember them. It was Nikki Grimes' Welcome Precious. It was Kadir Nelson book, Please Baby Please. It was a book called Black Like Me, and all of them featured Black babies. And I thought it was funny that she would check these books out over and over again, right? And even when we would return them, she would go through the bins and like not choose any books. And the librarian would bring our return books, and she would check them out again and like hold them like, okay, these are my books. And finally one day I said, baby, why do you keep checking out these same books? Like, what about this book or this book, right? And she just looked at me like, didn't I know? I swear to you, myself, she was little. She must have been less than 2. I'd have to look in her journal. But she points to the baby on the book, and she says, because the baby has brown skin like me, see? And she points to her own skin. I mean, like, there it is, from the mouths of babes. Like, she wanted to see herself. And I don't know if everybody knows this, but this is my daughter on the cover. So now there's her brown skin, you know, and she looks really India. So like, it's just an amazing journey that Adriana wanted to paint her for the story. I didn't ask her to do that. She wanted to do that. And so it's absolutely crucial. We're making these strides. I have those experiences that you have all the time. In the beginning, my thought was like, of course I'll read your story. Of course I'll sit and talk with you. And I don't have the time anymore. Like I have to read my own stories. And so I started being like super nerdy librarian about it. And I started keeping track because I kept answering those questions over and over again. So the resources aren't out there. I mean, I wish there was a one-stop one-stop shop, right? So I started collecting resources, and I need to get a website, and I need to put it on there. But I've started collecting resources, sites to follow, sites like yours, like We Need Diverse Books, like Latinx Publishing, and then step-by-step resources like the Writers Market, children's, and then there's one specific for children's illustrators and writers. Highlights Foundation. So I have all of these listed. And then sometimes we have local creative writing arts organizations like Gemini, which is the one that we have in our city, SCBWI. So I have all of these lists, and I'll just sort of email out, like when I connect with somebody. If they seem serious about it, I'll give them my card. I'll say, yes, let's follow up. I don't really know what I'm doing on social media. Like I try to follow other writers but before this book, I just refused. I was not a part of the world at all. Now, like I try to do my part by highlighting other writers, especially Latino writers. I try to post when there are grant opportunities or contests and things like, because
that's
what
great.
else am I doing on there? Nobody wants to know what I ate, or maybe they do, but I'm not gonna post that. So I really try to do my part, and I talk to Adriana a lot about it too. Like, hey, we have to help bring more people into it, because here's the thing, Maceo, it is incredibly confusing. It really is. Now, I've already given you my background, right? Journalism, literary arts, library studies. Those are fields where I already sort of have some knowledge of the way this world of words works. It has still been incredibly confusing, and not incredibly, but there are barriers. There are what is that word? Gatekeepers. These things, and even in the field of library science, I am one of very few. Talk about the statistics, right? Like it's a very Anglo profession. It just is. Access to information, to creating information, disseminating information. There have been gatekeepers in control for a long time for a very specific reason. Times are changing. We need to kind of bust open the gates. I do feel like us sharing our knowledge and resources is important. I also think, and I get on my soapbox about this a lot, and you can edit this out later if you want to, very strongly that, like, okay, first of all, if it's that hard for me to comprehend and to take in and understand, I'm a writer. Imagine the illustrators, right? Like when you have to like write query letters and, kind of process all of this verbal information. So when we get into the game, immediately we heard all this stuff about wanting to pull Adriana into these other projects, which is great because she's super talented. But I kept hearing this from various editors, agents, writers. Oh, because there's only 5 or 6 go-to Latinos in the field. What? 5 or 6? Come to my city. Go to Oakland, right? Like, let me personally introduce you to 60, right? So it's one of these things where I've gotten on my soapbox about it, and I've been told by editors, by agents, by other writers and illustrators, oh, but Xelena, no. Put your money where your mouth is, right? I have one publisher who really listened. He really listened. He said, what can I do? What can we do, right? And I said, come to San Antonio, find other people like me. We will gather the writers and the illustrators. Break it down, the whole submission process, why you need an agent, what a query letter is, why it works the way it works, what the timeline actually looks like, what kind of money you're looking at, and timeline. Break it down in a very simple way, have workshops, have meetings, like, so what they can do a one-on-one with an agent or an editor. Preferably make it free, preferably after work hours. Childcare would be like bonus, right? Like, this is, if you're really serious about underrepresented voices, this is what you got to do. Because it's an unlevel playing field in a lot of professions. So I feel like the publishers are the ones that have the resources. They're the ones who can make the biggest change fastest. Quite often, and I'm not calling out anybody in particular, it's just the way it's been done,
Yeah.
where like, oh, there's a market there. So then people who are not from our community are going to write that story. And who knows what their intentions are. I'm sure they're not always bad, but publishers will do sort of the lazy thing and they're going to take that, right?
Yeah.
Or they're going to commission someone they know to write a brown book. That's been done for a long time.
No, yeah,
But to bring it in, like there has to be a better, they have to step it up, I think.
Yeah, no, I think, no, I love it. I love it because we need your voice, you know, and we need to hear this. And we need to figure out how to do it, take action, and demand representation, you know, like we just have to do it. We have to do it for ourselves. We have to do it for others, you know, like we want like our kids not to have such a difficult time. Like it's been better, but it's not where it should be. It's not in the place where it should be. Like the bilingual books, like I'll look at a distributor's catalog of it. And so if I look from books published before 2010, the bilingual books are usually not written by Latino or Latina writers.
Yeah.
You know? And then after 2010, all of a sudden, you know, and it's not like people are, you know, just started writing, you know, it's just like people are now getting published more, you know, but it needs to be more. It needs to be more.
Absolutely.
Like I want that statistic to change drastically, you know, like in 2 years. Like I want to see an entire flip, you know, because it's not, you know, I follow a lot of, you know, writers and illustrators who are Black, Indigenous, and people of color. So I'm always seeing their work, but not everybody is, you know?
Right.
So,
and that's why the work that you do is important. Like the booksellers, the advocates, the bloggers, and even the consumers, you know, like, and I wish I could buy the authors that I follow too. Like, I wish I could buy them all. I go immediately when they say, oh, pre-order my book. I can't pre-order all of them. I simply don't have the income, but I go to my public library and I order it. You know, we should all do that so that, because it helps so much also to know that there is a demand and that people want this, and not just in our community. I mean, I think it's important and we want our children to see that, but you know, we buy books with animals and people who don't look like us. You know, so I hope that, and I've had people tell me too, like, oh, like they'll want to buy the book or they'll ask about it and they'll say, well, I think I know someone who's, I don't know if she's Filipina or if she's Hispanic. And I just kind of laugh. I'm like, you know, it's a pretty damn good book, no matter what. Like, I'm a believer that picture books are for everyone. Like, look at the themes in this book, and it's they're for everyone. They really are. And so, so we do want to write the stories. We do want to see ourselves represented, but there are stories that I have to tell that I've written that have nothing to do with Native American or Latino culture. And I think that's okay. Like, I think my voice is still important in any regard, you know, but the images do matter for now. And so these are the books that are coming out first.
That's beautiful. Oh, Xelena, this was so great.
Oh, thank you.
It was so great to talk to you. I feel very inspired. Okay, there you go.
Power of the phone.
Okay, well, we're gonna get off now, but I feel very inspired by talking with you and, you know, doing this work, you know, meeting authors, illustrators, and customers is what keeps me going, you know, because the background stuff that I have to do is, you know, not fun at all. So
I know there's so much action, right?
But it's all good because it's for our present and it's for our future. So I want to thank you very much for joining us in the Booklandia's author series. So can you tell us where we could find you?
Oh, okay. So I'm on Facebook. My name is Xelena González, and that's con X.
Mhm.
And then I am on Instagram, and I believe my handle is xfactor.live.
Yes.
I didn't know what I was doing anyway.
You could always change it if you wanted
Yeah.
to.
We have a really beautiful website for our book called allaroundus.info, and that
It is.
has a form for, if people have questions or wondering about appearances. I should have my own soon, but I don't know when that will be. So
It
those are
is.
the ways. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm going to post all of those with our
Oh,
interview.
good. Okay.
So then people could start following you. And yeah, your website's beautiful. And yeah, I hope this book is actually, we're going to be selling it next month. So I'm really excited. And Xelena told me that she's going to do some signed copies for us. So if you purchase from Booklandia, you'll get a signed copy.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. So thank you so much. And we're here for you,
Oh,
whatever
thank you.
support you need. So thank you and have a great day.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed talking to you.
Okay. Gracias. Okay. Adios.
Okay, bye-bye.